What's up, fellow adult collectors? Welcome to Civilian Collectibles. For today's video, I've finally gotten my hands on some of the new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse figures. On the left, we have Superman, based on his appearance in Action Comics number 1000. And on the right, we have Harley Quinn in her classic costume. The backs of each package does show the source image that each figure is supposed to be based on. Plus, on the sides, there is a subtitle for each figure describing that source. To aid in your hunt, here's the barcode on the bottom of Superman's box. And now, here's the barcode for Harley Quinn. When you open these packages, you'll find some items are glued into the backboard, such as the trading card and figure stands. Now that I have both Superman and Harley out of their packages, I'm going to give them both another full rotation on the spinner, that way you can see them all the way around. If this is the first time you're landing on my channel, my name is Seville, and here I like to discuss action figures and other collectibles based on my favorite movies, TV shows, and video games. If you like what you see here, please give it a thumbs up and comment below. And if you want to see more from me, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. With their time on the spinner done, here's a quick look at Superman with most of his accessories. He does have some alternate hands that we'll look at later. I just forgot to put them in this image. And now, here's Harley with her weapons, stand, and cart. The trading cards coming with the figures give me a bit of a 90s vibe because the Kenner Superman toys did the same thing. A point of interest for me on the back of the cards is that they once again list the source that the figure is based on. This is particularly interesting for Harley Quinn because back when these figures were first officially announced, there was some confusion about whether or not Harley was officially a comic book figure or an animated figure. But here, the source is officially listed as the comic book Harley Quinn number 15. So with Superman and Harley together, I do think we have a good baseline for how the male and female figures will be made going forward. However, I do gotta admit that Harley does have a lot of exaggerated features. Just in these comparison shots alone, you can see that her legs do have an odd curve to them, plus her head is a bit oversized. But we'll look at more of her later. Right now, we're going to focus on Superman. As far as I'm concerned, this Superman figure has a great overall design, and was at least one of the first conceptualized. Whether or not it was the first one or not, I couldn't really tell you, but I'm going to treat it as being the starting point for the McFarlane DC Multiverse line. Therefore, Superman will be my measuring stick, so to speak, for height and build comparisons. As far as being accurate to the source material, I think this figure is pretty much spot on with Action Comics 1000. It does have some added details in the rib area with some extra designs added into the suit, plus the S-shield being more pronounced, more three-dimensional, plus a shinier coat of paint that's different from the rest of the figure. On top of that, the trunks and belt have some added sculpted lines in there, just adding that much more texture to the overall figure. The overall paint and color scheme does look great. I don't think they could have chosen a better variation of red and blue and yellow, but when you are zoomed in this close, you can see that some of the lines are flawed. There's several points where two different colors meet, but aren't separated by a different segment of the figure that are not as straight as they could be. But when the figure's in hand and to the naked eye, I promise these flaws aren't quite as prominent as you see here. I've seen some people complain that his legs are too small, but in all honesty, I think that was mostly an optical illusion or just camera deceptions based on the original photographs. As far as I'm concerned, they look fine and are in proportion with the rest of the body. Another point of contention I've heard with this figure, well, the entire line really, is the sculpted cape. Personally, I've never really liked cloth items at the 6 and 7 inch scale, but that's just my preference. A sculpted cape like this one works fine for me because when I do flight poses or action stances, I want the cape to look like it's moving around, and a cloth cape is just going to hang straight down, unless it's one of the better made ones with the wire frames. Now, let's take a look at Superman's accessories. He does come with two extra hands, one being a closed fist, and the other being a grip hand with a trigger finger for some reason. I honestly have no idea why they included that. I could understand a grip hand if they had included like a flagpole or something for him to grab onto, but the trigger finger is going to be about useless. And I do wish they'd found another way to do the pegs, maybe burying it further down in the arm, because it does leave a little bit too much of a gap between the wrist cuffs and the hand itself. Maybe if the peg was flesh toned to match the hand instead of blue matching the suit, it would look a little better, but it's hard to tell without testing that. The flight stand that's included, while not great, isn't bad. It's not quite as functional as some of the ones you can buy standalone pieces from NECA or Storm Collectibles. Granted, those stands can cost $10 or more by themselves, So for this to be something that's included in a $20 package along with the figure is pretty nice. The direction of the grip claw is adjustable, but not by much. Still though, you can get some pretty decent flight poses out of it. So with all that said about Superman, it's time to move on to Harley Quinn. Don't worry, I'm still going to do Superman's articulation later, but I'll do him and Harley together. Now with Harley, I really think the best thing about her is the paint job. With Superman, I did say that there was some blurred lines or crossover with the colors when you zoomed in really close. But on Harley, that's not happening at all. There is no red where the black should be, nor is there black where red should be. Even the paint for her face is nearly perfect. But I cannot ignore the fact that her head is way too big for her body. You can see that Harley has the hourglass figure that she's known for, and then you have this. I do think that the size of her head, as well as the face sculpt, has a lot to do with the confusion of whether or not she was based on the comic books or the animated series, because she does look a lot more exaggerated and cartoony than the comic book based Superman and Batman. From the neck down and straight on from the front, she does look a bit more natural. That is, until you get to her knees and below. The way they made the ankle joints is a bit too large for her, and then with the knees you've got this weird curve right below the knee. I have her standing as straight as possible to maintain balance, but her legs are definitely not as straight as they should be. The rest of the figure looks fine though, and certainly brings to the table what you'd expect for a Harley Quinn figure. If there's one thing McFarlane has definitely excelled at over the years, it's been making the female body sculpt look really good. While this isn't his best entry into that foray, it's still not terrible by any means. But there's certainly still room for improvement. Moving on to her accessories, she doesn't get any extra hands, but she does get her signature weapons. The gun and the mallet both look pretty good, plus she does get the figure stand base as well. I do like the sculpted details on the head of the mallet because it makes it look and feel like it's carved straight out of wood. Both of Harley's hands do have the open trigger finger, so she can hold either weapon in either hand. Now, I've got Superman back on the screen so we can do some comparison shots with other lines. Starting with Mattel's DC Multiverse movie versions of Superman and Harley Quinn. Next, still from Mattel, we have some comic book figures, and now DC Collectibles TV figures. Going back to Mattel for just a second with WWE champions Brock Lesnar and Becky Lynch. Next, getting into Hasbro with the MCU Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series, and Power Rangers Lightning Collection. Some lines that do scale better with McFarlane are Storm Collectibles and NECA. So now, with the comparisons out of the way, it's time to get into the articulation. The heads are on ball pegs that do allow for some up and down movement, but they do have full rotation side to side. The shoulders do spin all the way around as well as move outward, plus they have butterfly joints for added front to back motion. These do work better on Harley than they do on Superman though. Their biceps do have full rotation, but another downside for Superman is that he only has single jointed elbows while Harley has double jointed. Both figures do have ball joints in the upper torso as well as the waistline, allowing for a wide range of movement in that area. Plus, the center abdomen piece can turn entirely independently. Their hips can spread out pretty far. In fact, Superman's actually gets wider than Harley's. They can both kick forward pretty well, and this is another angle that really shows just how strange Harley's legs are made. The double jointed knees on both figures fold really well, plus the ankles have full rotation and pivot motion. And finally, they also have toe joints that fold over really well. So with all that said, it's time to run these McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse figures through my guidelines for a complete and fair review. These are brand new sculpts that are fairly detailed, but I do think Superman is more accurate than Harley. On top of the strange design for her legs and the oversized head, I also think she's a little too tall compared to Superman. Also, a side effect of her strangely built legs is having trouble balancing her. Superman balances just fine though. They both have more than 20 points of articulation, and while they are a little scarce at the time I'm recording this, I do think they'll be more widespread just about everywhere in the coming month or so. They do both come with a handful of accessories, and I do believe that the roughly $20 price point is entirely fair for this line. And finally, the only slight quality control issue I would say I had is the little bit of paint slop I mentioned on Superman. Leading my final score for Harley Quinn to a 7 out of 10 star rating, meaning it's still pretty amazing and worth owning for all fans of the character. And Superman gets a 9 out of 10 star rating, meaning it is outstanding and already one of the best of the year. Therefore, if you're a long-time DC collector, these are definitely worth adding to your shelves. Or, if you're just now thinking about jumping in, the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse is a great place to start. Thank you guys for watching, and if you like this video,
Get over here!
and subscribe to Civilian Collectibles.